But as for the deal itself, guys, I mean, we did talk a lot about it yesterday. That $8.45 billion price tag is certainly more, as I said yesterday, than any other potential suitor for these assets was willing to pay. In fact, a lot more. But that may not matter for Amazon. Obviously, we know it's a $1.6+ trillion market value. Its cost of capital is near zero. I exaggerate a bit, but you know what we're saying here. Basically, it doesn't cost them much. And it will bulk up significantly, of course, the content library that they have available for their customers who are prime customers. There's hundreds of millions of them. Now, most of them are signed on primarily to get same-day delivery or next-day delivery, but a lot of people certainly enjoy and like the ability to watch movies and shows.
You go to Amazon, Roku, right? You go to Amazon, see what Amazon's offering.
Absolutely. It's certainly one of the important competitors. We've been talking a lot about it, of course, with the prospective merger of Time Warner and Discovery, creating a new colossus, so to speak, for a direct-to-consumer offering of HBO Max and Discovery Plus and whatever else they're going to bring to bear there. But Amazon is a significant player, and the question has been, how much are they going to try to bulk up what their offerings are? This doesn't all do it in any way. This helps. There will continue to be some questions as to what Amazon is willing to do here. Would they ever consider going even bigger? Would they ever consider trying to do something along the likes of a Viacom? Unclear that would be the case. Unclear where or if there would be real interest in getting something like that done. Although we do know they like sports. They want football.
But they've been very weak. They've been very weak in sports away from the actual content.
That's right. But I think there has been an unwillingness on the part of certainly the NFL to go away from the broadcast networks, right? I mean, there is a streaming option here,
but Amazon
they're not going to let you have it.
They took
alone.
A bunch of people from ESPN. Frankly, I thought they'd do something with football last year. They blew it up. They didn't make it.
Right.
They didn't do a good job.
Right.
When you look at the Amazon slate, all they do is have, like, Tom Clancy movies. David, it's the weak point. It's their Achilles heel.
Okay.
Okay, that was...
Was that a reference
I challenged Amazon.
Yes.
And you just acted as if...
Well, listen, again, you know, it's funny, Carl, many of the analyst reports that have come out, at least that have chosen to discuss this, have said it's a positive. Even if they are seen as overpaying, it's still viewed as a positive for the company. And again, it doesn't really move the needle on earnings or anything like that. But it is interesting in light of at least the enhanced competition between these giant platforms that are being created and what Amazon wants to do here. As opposed to, of course, remember a week ago I was talking about Apple. In fact, they've done nothing. Nothing. Just sort of sat there and kind of watched it develop.
Was Amazon interested at all in what AT&T was selling?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Really?
No.
What? Why not?
I don't know that it was brought to them, but I don't believe that they were interested in something of that size at this point.
It's learning. Yeah. They need to learn. That's where they work.
Yep. Yeah.
It's very interesting, Carl, because you know that there's certain weaknesses. I mean, what did they do with the NFL? Did they publicize the NFL? I mean, did they have Alexa, who's going to win the game? Alexa, who's going to have the most touches so you could go right to DraftKings? Did they have a tie-in with DraftKings? I felt that their whole sports slate was embarrassing. And they need to do something sports, and maybe this will do something entertainment. I'm not used to Amazon not being number one. Not used to it.
It's interesting you say that, Jim, because there is some discussion about the fact that because they have so much cash, operations generated $66 billion of cash last year. That's 8 times what Disney did. That when you have a buyer, David, with that much strength, that it sort of erodes others' ability to efficiently value properties. And are they sort of disrupting or, I guess, affecting the market in some ways in which efficiencies get degraded over time?
It's certainly possible. I mean, listen, we used to say the same thing about Netflix in terms of the money that they were putting forward for potential producers. And that was the case. I mean, it's been a great time to be somebody who creates content. We know that, and that likely will continue to be the case. I mean, we used, yesterday that excerpt from my interview with John Malone a couple of days ago saying the same thing. It does also, Carl, to your point, given this number that they're paying, $8.45 billion, a bit below the 9 that a lot of people who've been reporting on it had sort of said it might hit, but nonetheless far above the 6 that I was told by any number of other people who looked at the asset they might be willing to pay at the top. It does say, hey, what's Paramount worth? And if you want to, maybe this makes the Warner studio, any of these studios are worth a lot more today, at least based on the multiples that they're paying here. Than
Alphabet might be interested. Apple might be interested.
In what?
This is building content.
Yeah, there's a lot of interest in building in content, but there aren't that many assets out there.
No.
And then you've got the other smaller players, right? So Lionsgate has moved up on speculation that, well, maybe would somebody be interested, although they had their chance, Lionsgate. They could have sold to Hasbro. That deal was close. CBS wanted to own it, and that was when Iannella was running that. And then, of course, they got together. That didn't happen. Part Sherry Redstone was not necessarily interested in that deal. But Lionsgate had its chance a number of times. Unclear whether that will come up yet again.
Well, look,
you've got Sony, which is pursuing a different strategy, I think, in some ways. And obviously, the parent company in Japan seems to be happy with that. They're an arms supplier. They're the one who are going to be producing a lot. They have this output deal with Netflix that they signed recently. And their focus at Sony is so much on gaming, which is, by the way, another part of content. Don't forget those guys, the gaming guys. I mean, Bobby Kotick at Activision might be interested in acquiring some of these kinds of things.
Strauss Zelnick is from that industry.
Yeah.
But, David, Amazon, they make a great movie.
Yeah.
They make Bond.
Yeah.
Where's Adam Aaron?
He's watching it at his AMC theaters.
He's cut out entirely. Despite the fact there's meme buying here, they want Amazon to go, I don't know where they want it, to the moon? Where is to the moon, 21?
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.